So now I want to talk about dyslexia, the clinical entity. So you could look for school-age clues, and I try to summarize them here in more detail, beginning with the preschool years. So a child would have trouble learning his or her letters, letter sounds, sounding out words. You know what the scariest part is for a dyslexic child in class? You know, reading aloud in front of your peers and sometimes in front of your teacher. I've had the privilege of speaking to some of the most renowned people in the world who are successful adults. And I'll say to them, what do you remember about school? And some of them will even cry, the horror of being called on to read aloud, because it doesn't come out. And sometimes the children are not very kind. They start making fun or teasing, and they go to the playground, they get bullied. And sometimes teachers, too, say, but you knew this yesterday. How could you not know it today? And if you're dyslexic, you're going to be a slow reader. And often say, oh, you get so tired of reading. Oh, reading is boring. So you can see in spoken language word retrieval difficulties, reading that's slow, often choppy, because when you come across a word you don't know, you have no strategy. How do you figure it out? So you have a lot of pauses, problems in spelling, and then I can sometimes see who at my university is dyslexic. I look at their spelling and we need to talk. Poor handwriting. And this is very, very important. Attention. There is a big comorbidity or overlap between dyslexia and attention disorder. But in addition, people who are dyslexic, when you're a typical reader, oh, it's such a pleasure. You turn the pages and it's all automatic. So you may use up a little bit of attention, but not a whole lot. In contrast, if you're a dyslexic reader, it's work. You're a manual reader. And in order to read, you have to use up so much attention. So you get tired. You get frustrated, you look out the window, you're sensitive to noise. So it's such a sad thing because that's how they get into trouble. Why are you looking out the window? Why don't you pay attention? They've used up their attention already. Problems, as we said, with foreign language. And almost universally, we see in dyslexic children and adults, blows to your self-esteem and anxiety. You don't know when it's going to hit you again. You don't know what it is. It's far better if you know at least what you have. But people who don't walk around, uh-oh, when is it going to come? When am I going to say the wrong thing or not finish the reading? But there are also very important strengths. Remember, it's a paradox. And here, we call it our so-called yellow card. And we travel a great deal. And if you're sitting next to us, we're going to talk about dyslexia. I promise you. And I often say to people, well, what is it? And I'm no longer amazed at the answers because they're so, often, oh, it's seeing words backwards. No, 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 no. So what we did is we developed this card. And again, remember, dyslexia is a paradox, slow reader, fast thinker. So they're in pairs. And what I tried to show here is you may be dyslexic if you can find the point. Okay. So they're in pairs. The top is a weakness, the bottom is a strength. And it goes on. And I will read them with you or for you. Thank you. So, remember, there's a negative always paired with a positive. You may be dyslexic if you read slowly and with much effort. are often the ones to solve the problem. Can't spell, have messy handwriting. Your writing shows terrific imagination. In Overcoming Dyslexia, I wrote about a number of very famous writers who just can't spell. And one of them, unfortunately he's passed away, was a man named Stephen Cannell. If you ever watched on television the A-Team or Mr. T, programs like that, he wrote them. And he said, as I went through school, I never thought I could write. And you know why? Because he was always having points taken off for spelling. And then he went, I think in Iowa, they have a wonderful creator writers workshop. And I had this wonderful professor, I think it was Ralph Salzberg, if I recall correctly. And you know what he did? He ignored the spelling, but he saw the creativity, he saw the imagination. So we need to make sure that teachers can recognize, my own recommendation is to separate grades for spelling from grades for imagination and creativity. You have trouble remembering dates and names. And you think out of the box and grasp the big picture. You have difficulty retrieving and pronouncing words. At the same time, you have a terrific vocabulary and ideas. And this is our conceptual model of dyslexia. We refer to it as a sea of strengths model. And what you can see here is at the center, I refer to it as an island of weakness, decoding, but surrounded by a sea of strengths in reasoning, concept formation, comprehension, problem solving, critical thinking. I've just picked several examples. So you want to be able to identify those too. So you identify and remediate the weakness, but also identify the strengths and make sure the child has access to them, most commonly through accommodations. And the child should know that he just doesn't have the weakness. He has these strengths. And what we, particularly all of you here today, need to keep in mind, you can teach children to read, dyslexic children, others. It's very hard to teach children to think and to have that higher level sea of strength. So we can't have children give up on themselves and not know that they may be a slow reader, but they can be a fast thinker. In adolescence, young adult blues, you still have problems with spoken language, mispronunciation. I've heard so many say, it was on the tip of my tongue, I knew what I wanted to say. And then you know what happened? The person starts to use a small vocabulary and avoid the words that they may mispronounce. They understand them, but they don't say them. And what you have too is the lack of fluency, the fatigue in reading, the slow reading, avoidance of reading. Spelling remains disastrous, and a sacrifice of social life for studying. I've met so many students, yeah, well, on Friday night they say, oh, I'm not feeling well, I don't want to go to the basketball game. Or I have a headache, or this, and they study all the time. But they're embarrassed, so often they keep it from their friends. And again, we have to keep in mind that they have these incredible strengths. And I showed you that a moment ago.